It's now time for the World Brief as we take a look at the biggest stories all around the world. We kick off with the United States presidential campaign as President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have appeared together for the first time Thursday since he exited the 2024 race for the White House and she replaced him as the Democratic presidential nominee. Biden and Harris spoke at an event at a Maryland community college to talk about the administration's work to lower the cost of prescription drugs. They also praised each other. Harris, who spoke first, said it's her eternal and great honor to serve with Biden, whom she called an, I quote, extraordinary human being, an American and leader. Biden said of Harris, she's going to make one hell of a president. The Biden administration said Thursday that drug price negotiations will knock hundreds of dollars, in some cases thousands, off the list prices of 10 of Medicare's most popular and costly drugs.
And of course, I could speak all afternoon about the person that I am standing on this stage with. Our extraordinary President Joe Biden. And he's going to speak in a minute, but there's a lot of love in this room for our president. And I think it's for many, many reasons, including few leaders in our nation have done more on so many issues, including to expand access to affordable health care than Joe Biden.
Well, elsewhere, former U.S. President Donald Trump continued raining insults at Harris and Biden at an evening event dedicated to Jewish voters, where he was introduced by GOP megadonor Miriam Adelson to an audience that included a Holocaust survivor. Trump called Democrats a radical group of people, again criticizing Harris for not attending Netanyahu's recent speech before a joint session of Congress, traveling to Indiana instead. While Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, also did not attend the speech, stumping in Ohio and Virginia. Trump warns that anti-Israel protesters will descend on next week's Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Trump said that hundreds of thousands of people that are opposed to Israel are planning to protest around the events.
Because we believe that this vicious outbreak of militant anti-Semitism is very militant, must be given no quarter, no safe harbor, no place in a civilized society. We must reject it in our schools, reject it in our foreign policy, reject it in our immigration system, and reject it at the ballot box this November. You know, the toxic poison of anti-Semitism now courses through the veins of radical Democrat Party. I mean, this is a radical group of people. I never thought I'd see that either. They have gone crazy. And instead of expunging this hatred, Kamala Harris is pandering to it. He wouldn't even meet Bibi. He wouldn't talk to him, didn't want to talk to him, didn't want to mention. When they finally were forced to meet, she wouldn't be there. She wouldn't be in Congress. And they were forced to meet. It was like she couldn't stay. She just wanted to get out of the room. You can't have that. She'll let it go. She'll let Israel go. We must stand with our friend and partner, the State of Israel. We will, strongly. And you'll be okay if you have the right president. You have the wrong president, like her, honestly, you don't have a chance. We will not let a jihad, there will be no jihad coming to America.
Now to Europe, where Sweden has recorded the first case of a more dangerous type of Mpox outside Africa. The person became infected during a stay in an area of Africa with a major outbreak of Mpox. The news comes just hours after the World Health Organization declared that the outbreak of Mpox in parts of Africa is now a public health emergency of international concern. At least 450 people died during an initial outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the disease has since spread to areas of Central and East Africa. Very concerning developments concerning the spread of Mpox, but also a lot happening on the American campaign trail. Rufai, your thoughts on the latest?
So a couple of things as regards Biden and Kamala campaigning for the very first time since all of this happened, and since Biden pulled out of the race and all of that. Was a good outing. predominantly because Biden was there to tout this big move he had made as regards drug prices and the negotiation. We all know that over 65 million people are on Medicare, and those, I don't want to use the word geriatric drugs, but when you start to get to a certain age, you have depression and the likes, you have to be able to buy those drugs, and the price is really immense. And dealing with big pharma is a big challenge. And through the Inflation Reduction Act, which was posited that this was going to be the effect of it, to be able to reduce drug price, they were able to push back on drug price and save about billions and billions of dollars on that. So they touted that, but I didn't really see the big policy zinger that I wanted to hear. But maybe in other proceedings or in other debates, on rallies, they're going to, she's going to espouse more on that policy. And I need her to do more interviews because she needs to come out there more. On the other front, Trump just went on a lying spree, as usual. Went out there, said all sorts, tried to form that he was, pro-Jewish or pro the war and all of that. But yes, the Republicans normally have a slanting like that because of the deep state in America and all of that. But the truth has to be said. It was just a lot of lies, no real solution. Biden has put up a plan that's going to bring about a ceasefire. You can't just say, oh, you need to end your war on time and stop the killing. But you need to put forward a plan. And that's what Biden has put forward. And both parts are negotiating if they can reach a reasonable conclusion. So very unprecedented, constantly abusing. And it shows that things are beginning to go south for him because now he's now brought people like Corey Lewandowski back to his campaign, former campaign chief, and a couple of other people back to his campaign. In fact, he's made some more new appointments to his campaign. So that shows you that he's feeling the heat and his messages are not really landing. The abuse are not really landing. In fact, the other day, a co-contestant, the lady that served in his cabinet, somebody's talking in my ear, so it's also distorting my train of thought. Nikki Haley did go on Fox and tell him that you can't just keep campaigning and raining abuses. People need to know the policies and all of that. So his messages are not landing, and that's also being problematic.
All right, let me talk about Mpox. The first detected or the first case outside of Africa has been found in Sweden. And it was said that the person contracted Mpox whilst they were away in, I think, Congo on a visit just very recently. Now, the concern for this is now where it was largely on the African continent, and this is a deadlier strain, by the way. So Mpox this isn't the first emergence of Mpox. It's been around for a while, but this particular strain is said to be deadlier, killing up to 10% of people who've contracted it in the last few months. Now, the case is now that there are concerns that there are undetected people in Europe who have Mpox. And then the fact that it's deadlier, and how fast it is contracted just by proximity to an infected person or through intercourse demonstrates the seriousness of this. Now, there's this book here, and we had Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, An Imperfect Storm, where he talks about his experience with handling COVID-19. One thing he said in the book, which is very instrumental, and I think it's something we should pay attention to, is that following the case of Ebola, one would have thought that the country would have learned lessons, made provisions to ensure that in the event that we had diseases or communicable disease or an epidemic or pandemic like that, we will be better prepared to handle it. Unfortunately, we weren't when COVID-19 came. And unfortunately, it's sad to say that even now with Mpox being out there, I don't know if we're quite ready. But kudos must be given to the NCDC and other the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for the amount of work and effort they've put into this. So a few things to note at this time. The first port of call at the airports, people must be checked and we ensure that protocols are adhered to. I learned that now we had to complete the health form if you're traveling now as a result of Mpox. So if you're traveling out of the country, these are measures that have been put in place. Beyond that is early detection, which is key, so it would limit the spread to other people. Like I mentioned, the person in Sweden who was infected, who's traveled across continents, might have been in contact with people without knowing. So that's the concern and the scare. However, what this then means, sadly, is that the international community is now aware. So hopefully more efforts, more research, vaccines will be developed in order to address this issue. But everyone, please, just for people to be aware, keep safe out there and ensure that we keep hygiene at 100%. Absolutely. Now, very quickly before we move on, I'm quite intrigued by the U.S. election and things as they develop, especially the outing that we saw between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which was a very important message to send out. This is as the Trump campaign throws around the word coup concerning how Joe Biden was removed from the ticket and replaced with Kamala Harris. Now, this is a sentiment. The word coup is strong and it's wrong in this instance because coup infers that there was an illegality that took place. However, Joe Biden, although he had to be nudged, he was initially reluctant to remove himself from the ticket. We know that, but he did leave with his permission and he blessed his successor in doing so. So I think this show of solidarity is important, especially as the reports continue about factionalism and division within the Democrat Party. Some people are saying, Barack Obama is, they're saying he's a strong man between the Harris campaign and that he and Nancy Pelosi were very instrumental in making sure that they cornered Joe Biden to make sure that he had no choice but to be removed from the ticket. So a lot of developments there, but great to see them coming out together. Of course, this is again a counter from the Trump campaign because what the world will always have against Donald Trump is January 6th insurrection. So he's throwing it back to them and saying, well, if you're saying the Democrats love democracy and the Constitution more than I do, well, I'm telling you that they had a coup within their own party and they're undemocratic. So very good to see this strong unified showing from the Democrat Party.